update on Annie Knight.
So I've seen online that someone by the name of Annie Knight are coming to the Gold Coast for schooling.
And Annie Knight are getting deported from Fiji.
Unhinged.
So unhinged.
Hey guys, today we're talking about Annie Knight, who has been labelled Australia's most promiscuous woman.
This shit unhinged?
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Annie Knight Unhinged. So today I have a very exciting guest on. It's someone a little bit different to usual. His name is Lachy Mansell, also known as Lachy and the Geek. So he was actually on Beauty and the Geek in 2021 and he won, which is pretty cool. So we're going to talk about some of his reality TV experience and I guess like some of the career opportunities he got from the show. So he's now a producer at Carl and Jackie O, and he actually does a podcast with my friend Alicia, who is coming on the podcast in a little while. So yeah, very cool guest to have on. We spoke about some pretty interesting things, and I think he's a very intelligent, well-spoken guy. So I hope you enjoy that. But before we get into that, I have some updates for you. So the first one is that I went down to Melbourne last week, which I don't know, at the time that this comes out, I guess it'll be a couple of weeks ago. And I did a Herald Sun photo shoot, which was honestly probably like a career highlight. I don't know. Some people might think that that's a bit silly.
That's very cool.
Considering, the things that I have done. But it's always been a goal of mine. I have been in Herald Sun before, but not an exclusive interview and not a photo shoot, and it was just it was really fun. And then to my surprise, I was on the front page, so that was really cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
That's
I mean, I
crazy.
wasn't bam in the middle, but the little square on the side, and,
Yeah.
and I was so
That's pretty
excited.
cool.
And then I got a full page spread.
That's so cool.
I know.
What was it about specifically?
So it was initially Henry was going to come with me. He didn't in the end. I think he's pretty unfamiliar with all this
Yep.
media stuff, and he was kind of like, you know what, I think I'm going to step back a little bit. So I did it myself. We spoke a little bit about the engagement, but honestly it was mostly just to do with my work.
Oh, cool.
They
Yeah.
wanted to know about my challenge and
Yeah.
sort of how I came up with the Virgin idea and all of that kind of thing. So, and honestly, super respectful. I didn't know, I'd never met, her name was Alice. Never met her before, wasn't sure what her motives were, but she was just super supportive of sex workers, and she just really wanted to let me tell my story. So
Is that always a thing for you? Whenever you ask to an interview, you're curious of what their motives are?
yeah, I think so. And I think there's been times when I've been stung. So I'll be talking to a journalist, reporter, I don't know what they're called. And they'll put out a good article, and then we'll start building a bit of what's it called? Rapport with each other, and I start trusting them. And then they'll just come out with this article either slamming me or taking a negative take on me out of nowhere. Yeah. And then I'm just wow, what the fuck? So now, you just never know what you're going to get. And I think there have been a few Herald Sun articles, not done by Alice, but by a different journalist, and they weren't the best. So I was I don't know what this is going to be like, but no, she was great.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Is it online as well? Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
The
cool.
digital
Just for people
version.
to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think there's some very exciting things coming up, which I can't talk about, to do with the TV space. I hate when people do that. Here I am doing it. But stay tuned for that because I am really excited.
Very cool.
And then I did this TV show that I filmed with Mum in Dubai. That's very close to being done, I believe. Don't have a release date yet. So that's going to be on OFTV and then later on YouTube for people to watch.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm really hoping that goes well because we'd love to film a season 2.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to love Mum. I just can't wait because Mum is just, you haven't met my mum?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't met her.
You haven't met her because we did the podcast. Yeah. She's hilarious.
Yeah. She seemed great.
Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be really good. And then, so I've got something planned. So this is to my listeners. If you've ever wanted to be involved in one of my railing events or be part of my challenge, stay tuned because I'm doing something pretty cool on the 17th of May. It's going to be in Gold Coast. I'm still getting all the details together, but you'll finally have your opportunity. So by the time this comes out, I don't know when this is coming out, early May?
Not next week, the week after.
Okay, cool. So you have plenty of time to organise. But yeah, it's going to be really fun. I've done it again, the whole I've got this thing coming up. but I've given you more information. So I want to give you guys enough notice so that, yeah, I mean, some people might fly into state and would love that. But yeah, it's going to be a whole big thing. Yeah, it's been really fun to organise and I'm very excited for that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to the episode. Today's guest is a former Beauty and the Geek contestant, a current radio producer for Carl and Jackie O, and a podcast co-host with one of my friends, Alicia. Welcome to the podcast, Lachy Mansell, also known as Lachy the Geek.
Who would have thought that I've been on a podcast with Australia's most promiscuous woman? Definitely not something that would have been on my bingo card a few years ago.
So true. I remember actually being on the radio. I went to the Carl and Jackie O actual office. Do you remember this? It was like 2 years ago.
That was in Sydney, wasn't it?
Sydney,
into their Sydney studio.
And they called you up and we had a chat on the phone.
Yeah. In fact, one of the producers rang and they were like, Lachy, do you have a question for Annie? Yeah. And it was like completely out of the blue. And I think at the time I asked you if you'd ever taken somebody's virginity and your answer to that question was no. How times have changed.
How times have changed. Very true. It's so funny. Okay, so what I like to do with my guests is sort of wind back to the beginning and talk a bit about like childhood and, you know, what life was like growing up. So could you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Well, yeah, I suppose starting at the beginning. So, I always had unique interests growing up. Like when I was really young, through like before I was 10, I was interested in birds. That was my geeky interest. And I think it was just, I was always very inquisitive person. So as a child, I always wanted to know stuff. So when I heard birds calling, I wanted to know what they were. So I wanted to learn about that. So that was my interest up until I was probably about 8 or 9. And then when I turned, I reckon about 10, that gave way to an interest in cars. So again, wanting to know everything about cars. Developed an obsession for that, was reading all of the car magazines cover to cover, you know, and that became my next childhood passion that took me into my teenage years. And then when I was at high school, I discovered that I had a talent for public speaking. So I was never the most athletic kid or the best at sport, but I did have the confidence to get up and talk in front of an audience. So it would have been when I was probably in about year 8 or year 9, I decided that I wanted to become a motorsport commentator. So did work experience with one of the motorsport magazines, Auto Action, when I was in year 10, and then started volunteering to commentate at state level racing events when I was in year 11. Went to uni, studied journalism. Ended up working in motorsport as a commentator and doing media and PR for drivers and teams for would have been probably a good 15 years. So, yeah.
Wow. Very cool. I love that. So you're very like a passionate person. You kind of find something that you're like, you get like hyper focused on. So first it was like birds and now it's like motorsports and that's like your real passion.
100%.
Has anything changed? Like, is that still what you're wanting to do, is like, you know, just commentate for motorsports?
The dream definitely hasn't died, but I think probably the last 5 years, and I'm sure we'll talk about my reality TV experience, has broadened my horizons a bit.
Yeah, cool. All right. So one thing I want to speak about is, you know, you've been pretty open with your lack of success with women over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So at high school, I could always tell that I was a bit different compared to all of the other guys. So it's hard to explain how, but I always knew that I was different. And I think, like, as all guys do, I had crushes on girls when I was in year 7, year 8, year 9, but that was never reciprocated. So I got very used to getting rejected. And I suppose, you know, by the end of high school and into uni, I kind of decided that if I wasn't going to have any success in the dating side of my life, then I would make up for that by being hyper-focused on my career, and that was the thing that was going to bring me happiness.
Gotcha. Have you found that to be the case, or do you still feel like there's something missing?
So, no. And I think probably the thing that drove home that there's more to life than work and a career is during COVID, when the motorsport industry, like so many other industries, ground to a halt. And I had a lot of time locked up at home, not able to really work, and a lot of time to think about and reflect on life, that I realised that actually the dating side of my life was something that was really lacking. And, you know, the universe makes things happen for a reason. It was around that time that auditions opened for the reboot of the Beauty and the Geek reality TV show.
Right. So is that sort of what led you, that was my next question, is what sort of led you to joining Beauty and the Geek, and how has that impacted your life?
Yeah, so I think it would have been September or October in 2020 when we were still very much in the thick of the COVID period.
Yeah.
And Channel 9 announced that Beauty and the Geek was going to be coming back with Sophie Monk as the host. And a couple of my best friends sent me the application form, and I don't think they were that serious, but they were like, Lachy, you should fill this out and have a crack at it.
Yep.
And so I started the process, and I didn't really take it all that seriously. But next thing I know, I've got a casting producer reaching out to me. Hey, Lachlan, we love your application. We think you might be a good fit for the show.
How exciting.
It started off with doing a Skype interview, and then that progressed to an in-person audition in the studio. And then they make you, when you go on a reality TV show, you have to go through a whole lot of stages of the process before you get accepted. So there was a psychological assessment that I had to do. There was a medical examination, which included a blood test to check for STDs, which was extremely ironic because I can tell you that having never had sex at that point, there was zero chance that I was going to test positive to an STD. But I successfully got through all of those stages of the process. And next thing I know, hey, I'm going to be on the show.
That's so cool. So, like, what was going through your head when you got accepted? Like, were you excited? Were you nervous? And then, like, were your expectations met when you sort of went through that experience?
All of the above. So I was excited, but I was also a bit apprehensive because, and this is something that some family members expressed concern with as well. My mum in particular, she didn't like the idea of me going on a reality TV show because she thought that I might be edited badly and it might be detrimental to me. So I kind of had to push myself through that hesitation and just go, no, I'm going to do this. It's happening for a reason. I've been accepted. Let's do it. Probably the other thing as well is that the filming process took 6 weeks. And because I was running my own business full time at that stage, I had to go pretty much offline for 6 weeks and tell all of my clients in the motorsport industry, hey, I'm going to be away, but I can't tell you why because there's non-disclosure.
Of course.
So that was hard as well.
Would have been.
And you're self-employed, Annie, and you know, imagine taking yourself out of your work for 6 weeks.
I have 2 days off and I'm like freaking out. So I don't know how you did that.
I mean, very fortunately, I was allowed to access my emails in the evening when there was no filming. But even so, I mean, there were motorsport events that people were expecting that I would be at that I couldn't be at. So,
of course,
that was one of the biggest challenges. But to answer the next part of your question, the experience of the filming and the TV show as a whole was just awesome. One of the best things that I've ever done. For my self-confidence, my feeling of self-worth as well, the realisation that I was actually better at dealing with women than I gave myself credit for.
That's good.
And just the lifelong connections that I made as well. So my partner on the show, Kira, we ended up winning the show together.
Wow.
And she and I are still super close.
Oh, that's so nice. But you just weren't right for each other in the end, or?
Well, we were never together on the show.
Just to be clear, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the show. So
okay, yeah.
Pretty unfamiliar. Actually, that's a good point. Do you want to explain how it works for the listeners who maybe haven't seen it themselves?
Yeah, sure. So the way Beauty and the Geek works is that you start off with 10 geeks and 10 beauties, and they get paired with one another, and they have to negotiate their way through a series of challenges.
Right.
And the bottom performing teams in the challenges get eliminated until you end up with there were 3 teams or couples that went through to the final, and the eliminated couples voted for who they think deserved to win out of the final 3.
Wow, very cool.
Now, some of the beauties and geeks did form romantic connections and ended up dating.
Ooh.
Kira and I, that wasn't the case. We
Okay.
were only ever just really good friends. But that was fine because
Yeah.
we learned a lot from each other.
Yeah,
And,
and you have a good friendship now, which is very nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I guess, this obviously also helped your career as well.
Massively.
Yeah. So what happened once you finish and you're sort of like thrust into the limelight? How did you deal with that, like negatives and positives?
Yeah, it's even for somebody like myself who already had a bit of experience, it definitely was throwing me in the deep end. I feel like I had a bit of an advantage over some of the other competitors because through my work in the motorsport industry, I was used to the media. So,
Yeah.
Having already been involved in managing social media for racing drivers, when it came to managing my own social media, I had a bit of an idea of what to do. And when it came to the publicity and the radio interviews and all of that side of things, I feel like I was probably a bit better prepared than people who would come into that environment with no media background. But even so, it was still pretty overwhelming. Like the social media, especially just the escalation of that was, next level.
Did you get I mean, I feel like the answer would be yes, because everyone gets hate, but like, did you find that you got a lot of hate or negative comments and stuff like that?
Surprisingly, not really.
Lucky.
I think because Beauty and the Geek was much more of a feel-good reality
Yeah.
TV show without the drama that you might get on a Married at First Sight or a Love
For
Island,
sure.
we, as Beauty and the Geek contestants, didn't cop as much hate
That's good.
as some of the other people. Actually, I got lots of really, really lovely comments, and it makes me feel bad that I didn't have time to respond to them all.
Aw.
I also had lots of girls sliding into my
Oh.
DMs and wanting me to take them on dates.
Did you?
But again, that presented a bit of a challenge because a lot of those girls were not genuine and they were just clout chasers.
Oh.
So
Did you go on dates with them and then find that out, or did you already get the vibe? that
some
was-
of them, it was pretty easy to work it out before actually getting to the dating
Yeah.
stage.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that sucks. Did you find, though, your confidence after leaving the show was good enough that like you were putting yourself out there more?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yep.
So at what point, you mentioned before that when you went on the show you were a virgin. So at what point did you lose your virginity? What age?
So when I went on the show, I was, 2021, so 32, just turned 33. So I was actually within 6 months of the show finishing, I was in my first relationship. So
Oh.
that was the point that I lost my virginity to
Okay.
my first girlfriend.
How
So,
did you
yeah.
guys like meet and how did that happen?
So funny story on that one. So off the back of Beauty and the Geek, I ended up with the Kyle and Jackie O show. So this is going to be a
Yes.
bit of a long answer to this question, but it probably incorporates an answer to a question that I'm sure you were going to
Yes.
ask about the Kyle and Jackie O
I
show.
was.
So one of the challenges on Beauty and the Geek was that we had to host a live radio show.
Wow.
And that was filmed in the Kyle and Jackie O studio
Gotcha.
in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
So off the back of that episode with that challenge airing, Kyle and Jackie O interviewed me as part of their radio show.
Right.
One thing led to another. Kyle and Jackie O both really liked me,
Yeah.
and they ended up offering me a job to
So cool.
work with.
Just
them.
off that one
Yeah.
experience?
Yep,
That's
pretty much.
wild. That's so
Yep.
cool. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. So, that was a massive professional door that opened that I wouldn't
Yeah.
have predicted happening. But they really wanted to play on my lack of dating and sexual experience on the show.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they did was they organised a segment that was spin the bottle on air.
Okay.
So they got some girls to come into the studio and I actually had to make out with them on air as
Oh,
a segment. The video was still floating around on social media if people want to go and look for it.
Yeah.
But one of the girls in that segment, who I found out not long afterwards had a bit of a crush on me from the show, had
Oh.
made sure that she was in that group of girls for
Really?
the spin the bottle.
Yeah, okay.
So we kissed, but then we got talking afterwards and then we ended up dating for about 12 months.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. Very cute. So obviously you just said that you got the job basically through Beauty and the Geek.
Correct.
That's how they found out about you. But like, what was your role and what has been your role at the Carl and Jackie O show?
So officially my title is that I'm a producer.
Okay.
So I was in Sydney for 12 months. Then I went and did my own radio show in Ballarat to get a bit more on-air experience. And now I'm their studio producer in Melbourne. So it's helping produce segments. So if you listen to the Kyle and Jackie O show, you'll know that there's gaming segments. So that's one of my responsibilities is producing those. Now that I'm in Melbourne, helping out with the networking between Sydney and Melbourne. So making sure that ad breaks, news, sport, and weather are synced up because they're specific to each market.
Right.
You obviously can't have Sydney ads in Melbourne because it wouldn't make sense. Same with the weather. So, you know, making sure that when they go for a break in Sydney, that the corresponding break in Melbourne fires off at the same time.
Gotcha.
But then again, people will understand this if they listen to the show. I get used quite a bit for on-air content as well.
Definitely. Yeah. How is it working with Carl and Jackie? I've obviously met them and I think
You
they're
have,
great people. But I
bet you do because they're very supportive of people who work in your industry.
They are, yes. How have you found it? Like, is it something you're really enjoying?
Yeah, look, it's definitely got me out of my comfort zone with some of the things that they've gotten me to do. I feel like definitely early on, one of the good things about working for them is that it made me feel a lot more comfortable talking about sex stuff.
True.
Because I was very uncomfortable with that.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I had that opportunity to work with them to learn about that side of things. And again, you know, a lot of people who go on reality TV show have their 15 minutes of fame and then you don't hear about them ever again. So I'm very fortunate that the Kyle and Jackie O show has kept me in the spotlight, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I sort of mentioned at the start when I introed you that you do a podcast with my friend Alicia.
Yes. Yeah.
How on earth did that come to be? Can you tell the listeners the whole full story?
Yeah. So Alicia came in for a segment on the Kyle and Jackie O show. They do crazy segments. And last year they were doing a segment called Naked Dating.
That's right. Yes.
Where a guy and a girl would go into the studio and would have to get completely naked and decide whether they were attracted to one another. So Alicia was involved in one of those segments and it was done in the Sydney studio, but I was back in Melbourne. So I didn't actually meet her in person at that stage, but I still heard everything that was going on and I could see everything as well because we have a camera feed from Sydney back to Melbourne. So after that had finished, I sent Alicia a message on Instagram and I just said, hey, well done today. That was really good radio. You know, fantastic that you had the confidence to do that. Thank you. Well done. And she responded and was like, oh, Lachy, lovely. Thank you for reaching out. I didn't get to meet you, but, you know, who are you sort of thing. And then I had to explain who I was. And then we got talking and I can't remember how, but she ended up giving me her phone number. So I thought the banter between us was going pretty well through the messages. So I rang her up and I said, hey, how about I take you on a fun date? And she said, yes. So I said, all right, well, I'll fly up to the Gold Coast and make it happen.
Ooh.
So last year, flew up to the Gold Coast, organised a 2-part date. So the first part was I took Alicia 10-pin bowling and we did some arcade games. So we had a lot of fun doing that.
Yep.
Then I dropped her back home. I went back to the Airbnb that I was staying at. We had a couple of hours breaks and get changed. And I took her out to a really nice restaurant on the Gold Coast. We had a really lovely dinner.
Do you remember?
Miss Moneypenny's, which
Oh,
unfortunately has closed.
What?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Only in, I reckon, the last 3 months, the owner, who coincidentally I know because he's involved in motorsport, has sold it. So, yeah, unfortunately, Miss Moneypenny's on the Gold Coast no longer exists,
So sad.
which is tragic because they do such good food.
I know. And cocktails. Oh, well.
We didn't do the cocktails because...
No drinking?
No, I wasn't drinking.
Okay. Do you drink?
I do, but on first dates, generally not.
Okay. All right. Why?
Normally because I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
And I have a thing where if I'm driving, I don't drink
Yeah,
at
fair
all
enough.
because I have a very low tolerance to alcohol.
Fair.
So I don't trust myself that I'm not going to go
It's very-
over the limit.
Very
so,
responsible.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, you took out for dinner.
Yeah, and then we went for a walk along the beach. And
Oh, cute.
And then she said, hey, Lachy, how about we come back to my place and do some Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch?
Oh, Mario Kart.
So we went back
What-
to her
what was
place
that
and we
code
did
for?
Mario Kart. Which I'm embarrassed to say that despite me being the motorsport expert, she beat me.
Oh, she's very competitive. Doesn't surprise me. So then what happened? Was that it?
Oh, gentleman doesn't tell.
Oh, I know what happened. Alicia's told me all about what
I
happened.
bet she has.
You had some fun after Mario Kart.
Yeah, let's just say that Mario Kart wasn't the end of the fun that we had that night.
I love that. Okay, so that happens. And then how do you go from that to doing a podcast together?
Well, obviously we connected really well, and
Mm-hmm.
I think Alicia did a Q&A thing on her Instagram, and one of her followers suggested, hey, you and Lachy should do a podcast together. And we got talking about it, and we were like, actually, yeah, that's not such a bad idea, because we've both got completely different backgrounds,
Yeah.
and it would be fun and interesting for us to do it. So we recorded a pilot episode, and somehow one of Kyle and Jackie O's other producers, intern Pete, managed to get hold of some audio from it, which then got played on the Kyle and Jackie O show.
Stop.
And then Kyle was like, yeah, we think this is a great idea as well. So we managed to get iHeartRadio to support us
so
with
cool.
the podcast as well.
That's amazing.
Yep.
So what's the podcast called?
It's the Geeky and Cheeky podcast.
I love that name.
We'll have to get you on it. Seeing
I
as
would
I'm
love
on this
to come
one.
on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
That'd be so fun. So you guys do it like virtually though, because you
Well,
guys live separate.
Yeah, well, Alicia's over in Bali at the moment,
That's
so we
right.
record it remotely.
Remotely, that's what I meant.
And yeah, thankfully with technology being so good these days, you can record podcasts from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. I thought it was really funny that I think Millie Hannah, one of our first guests,
Yes, who was over with Alicia in Bali, and
we had them on the same week.
exactly the same week. And also Minky Minna, we've had her
Really?
on pretty much the same week
That
as well.
is so
I think.
funny. Good guests.
I think one of the things though is that we're not doing just adult content
Yeah.
creators. So we've tried to mix it up and do guests from my world as well.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah.
So we've had some other reality TV people on. We've had some other people from motorsport on as well.
Yeah.
So just to try and mix it up and get different perspectives.
Yeah.
Mm.
I guess on the back of all of that, you've kind of spoken about how you're quite confident public speaking and, you know, obviously going on the radio talking in front of millions of people essentially, but you still sort of struggle with confidence when it comes to girls a little bit, would you say?
I'm definitely better than I used to be.
Okay.
And I mean, any guy who is approaching a girl for the first time is always going to be nervous. So
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that's just natural.
And girls get nervous too.
I think definitely one of the things that gave me a lot of confidence, particularly after Beauty and the Geek, is that I had lots of girls approaching me.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a lot more confident than I used to be. Probably the one area where I was still lacking a bit of confidence was with the more like spicy stuff.
Yeah.
The experience with Alicia definitely helped with that as well. She taught me some things
Love
that were very useful. So
That's fun.
yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing because, you know, people, obviously I sleep with a lot of people and people would think, oh, she must be so like confident. I am. But like I get nervous every time regardless. Like it's such a normal feeling that when you're having a sexual experience or going on a date for the first time to be nervous. And I think like on that point before, it's like having confidence in other areas of your life, you know, is different. I think having confidence when it comes to women or men as well.
Yeah, but I think the thing with me is that it's unusual because a lot of people are absolutely terrified of public speaking.
Yes,
It's-
I used
isn't
to
it-
be.
Isn't it like the biggest fear for a lot of human beings?
Yes.
Whereas I've always been super confident with the public speaking stuff,
Yeah,
but a lot less confident with the more one-on-one social interactions.
for sure. Yeah.
Which is the opposite to most people.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the same. I mean, I'm the opposite. Yeah. I used to be so scared of public speaking. Like, would do an oral for year 12 English and be like trembling. And now I do a podcast. Okay, so when I asked you, I guess some like some things about you and things that you wanted to discuss, one of the things you mentioned was that you're really trying to break the stigma of men just like always wanting casual sex before a relationship.
Correct. In the same way that you've been trying to break the stigma of casual sex is only for men, and that it's, you know, women who have casual sex are judged to be sluts or whatever.
For sure, yeah.
I'm sort of also trying to break the stigma, but the opposite, if that makes sense. So I am not interested in casual sex. I would never have sex with a girl after at least a couple of dates. So with Alicia, technically I say that we went on 2 dates.
I get it now. Yeah,
right?
okay.
Because it was in 2 parts. But I'm the sort of person who needs to be feeling some sort of romantic connection with a girl before I'm interested in sleeping with them.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like that. The gentleman. Rare to find these days. Okay, Lachy. So to finish off the episode, basically I always do this with every guest. So
this is the bit where I get a question from the previous guest. Yes, so I have thought about this one. Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so the previous guest has asked this question. What has been your favourite thing you've spoken about on the podcast with Annie?
That's a good one. Who was your previous guest?
Yeah, an OnlyFans creator called Sarah Lloyd.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with her, but well, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We
but
have.
I think I always on podcasts like to talk about things that people can use as takeaway points.
Yep.
So I think just the idea of pushing through boundaries. So, you know, talking about my reality TV experience and how that encouraged me to push through some boundaries that I'd set for myself. I think that's probably the favourite thing that we've discussed on the podcast. So, yeah.
I like that too. Okay, now is your time to shine. What question do you have for the next guest?
Yeah, and I want you to answer this one as well.
Okay, I will.
So to keep it on brand, it's a 2-part question.
Okay.
So number 1, what car do you currently drive?
Okay.
And part 2 is what is your dream car?
Okay, so hang on, just writing it down. What car do I currently drive? I drive a Mazda CX-5.
Yeah, nice, practical SUV.
Personally love. Like a lot of people are like, why would you choose a Mazda? Like, I love it.
Yeah, this is good. I've
They're a
known
good
Mazdas
car.
in the past.
Yep. And my dream car would be a Mercedes AMG. Black.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah.
Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Which one though? Because there's all different Mercedes
I know,
AMGs.
and I've seen a few different ones. I'm actually not that knowledgeable with cars, so I don't know what type.
Oh, well, when you get up to deciding to buy a Mercedes AMG, make sure that you bring me with you on the test drive.
I will for sure.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Did you want to plug your Instagram maybe just in case anyone wants to check you out?
Yeah, so on Instagram at Lachy_Mansell and also the Geeky and Cheeky podcast.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I guess finally, I just want to talk about Henry's going to be appearing a little bit more. You guys seem to love having him on. Every episode we do with him, the listeners just go, whoop. So, and honestly, like I love having him here just to have like someone to bounce off. Obviously, we've got that banter and he's funny. I hate to say it.
He is funny. Yeah.
Shut up, Caleb. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so that's going to be really cool. He's going to join us for some episodes with guests as well, which I think will be interesting. We have, I think our next episode after this, we're having a sex therapist on, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to try and get some more guests, I guess, from, you know, outside of my world as well as from inside my world, because I think it would be really cool to have Henry come on an episode with another OnlyFans creator. What would be really cool is if we could get a couple OnlyFans creators, because Henry has a lot of questions for, I guess, or just men who are dating creators and, you know, all of that, because now he's dating one, he's got to navigate that. So yeah, I think there's going to be some exciting episodes coming up. If you guys want any guests on as well, like make sure you DM me because I can do my best to get people on. I also want to start like doing podcasts overseas and stuff to get more guests on overseas. So I'm heading away in July and August again without Henry this time. because we all know that he's not very good at traveling. So yeah, I would love to get some cool guests on over there. But yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Annie Knight Unhinged. Make sure to give us a follow on Instagram. Our @ is annieknight.unhinged without the I in the night. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the episode and we'll see you next week.
Update on Annie Knight.
So I've seen online that someone by the name of Annie Knight are coming to the Gold Coast for schooling.
And Annie Knight are getting deported from Fiji.
Unhinged.
So unhinged.
Hey guys, they were talking about Annie Knight, who has been labeled Australia's most promiscuous woman.
This shit unhinged?